What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 332 of AskGSM here today for April 8th, 2020. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and recovering well from Wrestlemania weekend just a couple of days ago. I was up super late every single night working on content, but it all paid off. It was a great weekend. I thoroughly enjoyed Wrestlemania. Hope you guys did as well. I'll get into more of that as we go along here. But before we go any further with today's show, gotta note this. We are calling an audible with today's episode of AskGSM, and that not for the first time ever, because I've definitely done this before. Not recently, but many, many years ago. I'm recording this outside. It was the only option that I really had to record the show on time today. So if you hear any construction noises, bird chirping, whatever, that's what it is. So I apologize that you're not getting the usual quality, audio quality from the show, whatever that may be. I can guarantee you that last week's show was much better. So definitely go check that out if you haven't already. Although it was previewing WrestleMania, we are now post-WrestleMania. Still well worth checking out. I did an awesome preview show with Alexis, breaking down all your questions from Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you haven't already checked it out, definitely do so. Episode 331 with Alexis. Tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio, another quick note before we go any further. Actually, two quick notes. Tomorrow, it's a pretty great week, although WrestleMania is officially in the books. Lots to look forward to, including TakeOver tonight, if you're listening to this pre-NXT, with Gargano Ciampa, the big blow-off to their awesome rivalry. We have the women's ladder match, Dynamite also on tap for tonight. Obviously airing opposite of NXT. I'll be watching NXT first. That's just me. But tomorrow, RJ will be returning to Wrestle Rant Radio, Mr. Marceau himself, to help me break down WrestleMania 36 weekend and probably offer some NXT and Dynamite thoughts as well. So be sure to join us for that and all the popular podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Podbean, NextAirWrestling.net, everywhere. So check that out tomorrow. Then on Friday, now the audio of this and or the article form of this will not be up until next week. But this Friday at, I think, around noon or 1 or so, I will be talking to the WWE Hall of Famer, AEW's own, the legendary good old JR, Jim Ross, for an exclusive interview talking his Under the Black Hat book that's coming up very soon. So very much looking forward to that. I have talked to JR before, about 4 years ago. The interview is available here on the channel if you want to check it out. One of my favorite interviews I ever did. We got a ton of time to talk to, unless it gets cut down between now and then, which is entirely possible. I have plenty of time to ask all the popular questions or whatever. So if you have anything for me to ask a good old JR on Friday, definitely let me know on social media, Facebook, here in the comments, Twitter, whatever. I'll be sure to ask him in the interview, and you may hear your question answered in our interview when it hits either Wrestle Rant Radio next week or the article or whatever at some point within the next week or two. But anyway, let's get started here with your questions. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post. I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And finally, last but not least, be sure to drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. First question comes from Elena the Y from YouTube. Bit of a disclaimer here before they go forward with their first question, which reads, I've been working in a hospital back here in Calgary, Alberta. Long story short, it's been crazy. I've simultaneously been extremely busy and left with a lot of downtime this past month. Don't really have a question regarding this, just wanted to briefly share my experience. Well, thank you for serving, and not just serving. I mean, it sounds like you're in the military, but you might as well be. Thank you for being on the front lines for this whole crazy period that we're going through right now, whether you're working in a hospital or at a grocery store. I mean, even the smallest parts, if you're out there working, that shit matters. You're probably essential if you're still working. If not, that sucks, but if you are essential and you're out there still doing your thing, putting yourself at risk, whatever, we very much appreciate it here from the hashtag AskGSM family. But their first question was, out of everything they've been doing, I have no idea why Drew McIntyre did a full entrance in gear 20 minutes after WrestleMania, quote-unquote, to do an in-ring entrance. First of all, was the whole segment being taped for Raw, but they forgot to take down the WrestleMania graphics, so WWE just said whatever? The match it was setting up for is one thing, but I have no idea what the logic was behind the setup itself. So that was my issue with it. Regardless of the match itself, which was still stupid and random and there was no need for it at all, the setup was bizarre. Now, I know they filmed that at WrestleMania. Maybe they didn't want to tape it the day before because they filmed everything for the post-WrestleMania Raw, reportedly the day before on Tuesday or Wednesday. and they taped WrestleMania on Wednesday or Thursday. Not like this. I think it was 2 weeks ago, actually, if I remember correctly. So that shit's been in the can for a while now. But I believe that they taped the Raw beforehand, so it might have been weird for McIntyre to go out there and cut this big post-WrestleMania Raw promo about winning the WWE Championship when he hadn't even won it yet. So that makes sense, I guess. But at the same time, though, going forward, it looks like with the whole post-WrestleMania title defense and everything else, I don't know why they would have done that. I honestly have no clue, just because it's very bizarre to me that they would do this whole match after Mania itself when they could have just, I don't know, saved it for another time or something. The whole thing was completely random. But like you said, making the whole entrance and gear and whatever, completely nonsensical. So I have no idea why they did that. And like you said, did they forget to take down the Mania graphics or whatever? I mean, it's quite possible. But at the same time, though, I think they had the whole set already set up, and they couldn't really go back to having the Raw set because the Mania set, for whatever it was so elaborate, so they couldn't take it down just to record one segment. I would have just gone without it. I would have cut some sort of sit-down promo or whatever promo with McIntyre in the back. I think that would have been a lot more natural. It would have made a lot more sense than what they ended up doing, which made, to me, absolutely no sense. So, yeah, I don't know what their thinking was with that. I think the fact that they went through with it anyway was just completely lazy, but it is what it is. Kind of tying into your second question, which reads, second of all, few things have scared me in life more than Big Show almost winning the WWE Championship in 2020. Even more than the weird interview set up earlier, I still don't know what to make of it. Do I get mad at WWE for working, quote-unquote, my emotions over Big Show versus Drew McIntyre, or should I applaud them? Even worse than the setup itself was the fact that the match even happened, because Big Show comes out, again turns heel for the upteenth time. I know they're promoting his show on Netflix, which I think came out Monday. I'll probably watch it at some point. But the whole idea that he would come back out of nowhere, I was just thinking recently, like, where Big Show's been, because he's been off TV since early January, resurfaces on the quote-unquote post-WrestleMania Raw. Technically, Big Show headlined WrestleMania 36. I mean, if they're saying that this took place after Mania and not on Raw, Big Show and McIntyre main evented that show, giving it, 19 matches in total, which is completely ridiculous. And McIntyre had the dumb babyface syndrome there for a second, and that he was goaded into accepting this impromptu championship match. Now, if he lost, he would have been an even bigger idiot for accepting the match and then ultimately losing. A lot like Randy Orton a couple of years ago when he beat Christian for the World Heavyweight Championship back in 2011 or so. Christian had just won the belt 2 days earlier. I feel like he was the one who accepted said challenge from Randy Orton, and that cost him the championship in the end. Now, granted, for Christian, it led to a heel turn, but I don't think they're turning McIntyre heel back, hopefully not, anytime soon. So I thought that was stupid. The match wasn't that good. Do you get mad at the company for working your emotions? No, because I think it was done masterfully in a way, but I don't want to give them too much credit. The only reason why we bought into the idea of Big Show winning the championship, which was absolutely a possibility, because this is WWE we're talking about here. There was no doubt in my mind. I honestly really thought, legitimately there for a second, that McIntyre would lose, because otherwise, why would they do that? I mean, obviously just to surprise people, but the whole post-WrestleMania shocking footage really wasn't all that shocking. It was just dumb. I felt like I wasted my time sitting through that entire episode, which was incredibly boring, by the way, only to get to said footage, which was maybe 10 minutes long, whatever. But anyway, talking about the match itself, the only reason why anyone, including myself, bought into the idea of Big Show becoming WWE Champion, was because this company has done the wrong thing, has made the wrong call God knows how many times, that you don't know what to believe anymore. It honestly kind of adds to the unpredictability of these shows. At least NXT, most of the time AEW, you know they're going to do the right thing, and you have faith in their creative/booking team for the most part. WWE, I have very little faith. So when they do the right thing, like they did with McIntyre at Mania, I'm pleasantly surprised. So in a way, it works out because it does make their shows unpredictable, for better or for worse. Because again, you don't know when they're going to do the wrong thing. Like Charlotte beating Rhea, I thought was incredibly stupid. Now, we'll get to that later. I guess there was a report indicating that Rhea's work visa had expired and that she has to go back to Australia. Rhea denied those reports. I mean, I'm not really sure how much that means because people do that all the time. She may be just trying to slow down the rumors or whatever, but she said she's still here in the United States as of right now, and she denied those reports. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on with Rhea. If it wasn't a work visa issue and they just took the championship off of her just to take the championship off of her, again, I think that's incredibly stupid, but that's just me. As far as the Big Show thing, again, the only reason why they thought that, and anyone thought that he was going to win the championship, was because this company does the wrong thing most of the time. Not even like some of the time, but a lot of the time they do the wrong thing. Yes, they will give us the occasional moment with Kofi or McIntyre finally winning the WWE Championship, and then they'll go right back to doing the dumb thing. Like right after that Mania last year where we got what we wanted and Rollins, Becky, and Kofi walking out of Mania as champions, they instituted the fucking wildcard rule less than a month later. So again, how much faith can I really instill in this company? You know what I'm saying? So, no, I'm not going to give them credit for like, oh, they worked me. No, it was dumb. It should not have happened in the first place. It was fucking dumb. It was a bad way to cap off a bad show. Emmanuel A. from YouTube, what is art, he asks. And was John Cena versus Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse art? I think you answered your own question right there. I think art was the Firefly Funhouse match. I think the real definition of the Cena versus Wyatt Firefly Funhouse match is art. I thought it was a masterpiece. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm going to be honest with you. First of all, the Boneyard match I loved too. I loved both cinematic-esque matches, both nights. I thought they were great. I know some people like the Boneyard and not the Firefly Funhouse, or they liked the Firefly Funhouse and not the Boneyard, or they didn't like either of them. And honestly, I'm watching the Firefly Funhouse stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, like, I'm digging this. I like all the throwbacks and the callbacks and the way they kind of handled it. It's not really a match. I like how you said in the Firefly Funhouse and not really a match, because it really wasn't a match. It wasn't a match at all. It was like a skit. It was a glorified skit. I mean, all of wrestling's a fucking skit, but I thought it was great. I really thought it was very entertaining. They paid off the feud nicely. I had no desire to see Cena versus Wyatt a month and a half ago, but they made it well worth it for that match alone. It was one of, if not the best thing that Wyatt has done in his entire WWE career. I know that's not saying a lot, because the guy has been booked terribly in the last 6 years. But you know, the Shield matches were great. The Daniel Bryan matches were great. Obviously, those were better from a purely in-ring standpoint. But in terms of like character stuff and just an elaborate mindfuck, I thought that was easily the best thing he's ever done. He says a lot of things, he cuts a lot of promos that he doesn't really mean, that never really amount to anything. But this match did. This made it all worth it, and I thought it was awesome. So again, I'm watching that match, and I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, people are going to poop all over this thing. People are going to crap all over this match. Although they like the Boneyard, I feel like this is it. They took it a step too far. People will shit all over it. Read my timeline. Everyone loved it. Not everyone, but most people. Honestly, it's weird. I think more people liked the Firefly Funhouse match than they did Undertaker and Styles, which I thought was very surprising, because that was more of a match. This was more of, like, again, a segment made into a match. But I thought it was exactly what it needed to be. I was thoroughly entertained throughout the entire thing. And like I've said before, I really hope they do more stuff like that. I really do. Especially in times like this where you have the advantage of having a pre-tape show and you can go out and do stuff like that. You can't do it when we go back to having crowds on a regular basis, because you can't really do a match like that every week and expect the crowd to watch from, from the audience or whatever. It's a lot like Lucha Underground. That's really what it reminded me of, in addition to, obviously, the final Ultimate Deletion, whatever. That was the only match I can really think of, aside from the House of Horrors, that took place outside of the WWE ring that people were sitting in their crowd watching. The Ultimate Deletion, I don't even think they showed in the arena that night, from what I remember. I wasn't there, but I remember reading that people weren't even shown the match. They had other matches in the arena to make sure they didn't get bored. And that was the one match they should have seen. The House of Horrors match, I think they were booing in the arena, and then they ultimately ended the match in the ring. They didn't end this one in the ring. I don't think they can get away with doing stuff like this, on a regular basis when they go back to having crowds. With Lucha, they weren't, the people weren't sitting in the crowd watching the match from the big screen. First of all, I don't think there was a big screen. Second of all, it was a pre-taped show. So they had the advantage of kind of splicing in those segments and whatever. The audience in the arena probably had no idea what was going on until it made air. But it was so cool to see, from a viewer standpoint, the stuff that they would splice in, how they would do it, how it felt like a movie, I thought that part of it was great. So, to answer your question, yes, I thought it was art, and I really hope they do more stuff like that in the future. FD from Facebook sent in these two questions last week, so I apologize to FD for not including them last week. I just started recording before he sent them in. He included a third question about Mania. I think it had to do with Mania and the pre-taped nature of it or whatever. Obviously, it's not relevant anymore. But these two are. He said, what are your thoughts on the amazing effort by AEW to show off young, talented independent stars not under contract like Fabu Andre, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name, who AEW selected to be on AEW Dark last week and facing off against the best of the AEW roster like last week's edition. And do you feel this is a good move for the long run in the independent stars' careers? Yeah, I think a lot of people don't really realize that. First of all, Dark has never really been must-say. Let's face it. I'm a big AEW guy as much as anyone else. Even I can admit, AEW Dark is usually extremely skippable. But especially in recent weeks when they don't really have the luxury of having competitive matches because they're kind of working on a tight time schedule here. Last night's episode was only 20 minutes, and again, it was all squash matches. They had QT Marshall versus some guy named Lee Johnson. So again, it doesn't make for the greatest show, but I do think it's cool because what a lot of people don't really realize that Tony Khan he brought up on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, that what they're doing is they're bringing in indie guys because they're not getting any. They're not getting a paycheck right now. All the shows are off for the foreseeable future. People in WWE and AEW and companies like that may not be entirely affected. The indies definitely are. There's a lot of indie wrestlers I know that make most of their money from doing the indie shows. And yeah, they may have a normal job during the week, but they supplement their income by doing the indie shows on the weekends. And some fucking bird just flew right by. So if you heard that, I apologize. And he probably agrees that a lot of these guys are not getting a paycheck right now. So AEW is doing a cool thing by bringing these people into work, quick enhancement matches, and it's a lot like, superstars from back in the day in WWF and whatnot. I just don't think they can get away with doing it on a regular basis. Now, I think what they did yesterday was cool. They can't stretch it out to an hour show with all enhancement matches. They did that a couple weeks ago. They did like 6 matches that were all enhancement matches. Not a real big fan of that formula, but if they condense it to like a 20, 30-minute show, give these people necessary wins, people like QT Marshall and all the losers of the show, Colt Cabana. I mean, he's not really a loser, but I assume he will be at some point. Then I think it's fine. They could probably... I was going to say they can go back to doing what they were doing before with Dasha and Tony Schiavone in previewing Dynamite and all that other stuff. But maybe they just can't because Dasha's there. She's doing the ring announcing, and Tony is doing the commentary, I think, for the shows. I'm pretty sure anyway. I don't think Excalibur's been there from what I can remember, which is weird. You would think it'd be the other way around. But yeah, no, I think it's cool. I think it's a cool tactic by AEW to give these people a paycheck and to highlight their own roster, too. It's not going to make for the greatest show in the world every week for the next number of months, which I'm sure this is going to last for, unfortunately. But for now, I think it works. His second question, which is also still relevant after last week, he said, with WWE has until Wednesday's NXT in the can, he's talking about this week, before the whole lockdown happens, do you see WWE potentially having to resort to something a lot of fans have been clamoring for in off-season, where WWE superstars will be able to take a temporary break until the virus pandemic wears down and the superstars are able to work as normal again with the live crowds returning? If not, what are your predictions for the WWE's TV schedule, live or recorded, for the foreseeable future once Wednesday's NXT is done showing on TV? So there is a bit of an update on that front from last week when he sent that in. Yes, as you mentioned originally, the lockdown in Orange County, Florida, the entire state of Florida, what have you, I think was supposed to expire this Thursday, i.e. tomorrow. And they could have gone back to doing the shows as soon as Friday. Now, I've heard conflicting reports. I heard that WWE is still moving ahead with taping their shows. I don't know if it's going to be at the Performance Center. I'm pretty sure, and I may have mixed this up with AEW, but I think they're doing the same thing. Same thing with Impact. I think Impact is also moving ahead with their shows, including the Rebellion pay-per-view, which I had tickets to and unfortunately got canceled, which sucks. But they're doing it anyway, and like in Nashville or whatever, okay? So anyway, what I was going to say was, with WWE, so with their taping schedule, what it looks like is that the lockdown, as many people expected, because just because they say, it's going to be reopened in 2 weeks, doesn't mean that it will be. I've discussed this with other people, but it seems like a lot of these precautionary measures with like, we're in lockdown, which isn't really a lockdown. People can still leave and whatever. It's more of a stay-at-home policy. I don't really think it's as extreme here as it is in other countries. It depends on where you live, obviously. But at least there in Orange County where the Performance Center is, I think what happened was they extended it. So they can't tape the PC. I heard they're still going ahead with Friday's SmackDown, but from an undisclosed location. and they won't tell anyone. I mean, how practical is that? I don't know. But it seems like that's the direction they're going in. So I think they are still adamant about taping TV, not missing a week, doing the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Hell, I could see them pulling an Impact or a former NXT, what NXT used to do, and just taping all of their shows, not for a week or two like they did a few weeks ago, including WrestleMania, but rather for the next month, including Money in the Bank. And honestly, I don't think spoilers would get out. I know they definitely did not for any of the shows they aired last week, which I thought was pleasantly surprising. I thought that was really cool that there were no spoilers that came out from the shows, including WrestleMania. I was fully expecting to see a spoiler on my timeline, like, oh, Braun Strowman won the belt. I think we already knew that Braun was going for the belt. But other than that, we didn't know the outcome. We didn't know the outcome to Drew and Brock, especially since I think for a lot of the top matches, if not every match, probably only the top ones, they filmed 2 different finishes. So no one knew for sure what finish they would go with. But anyway, I think it is, I don't know if it's exactly practical for them to continue moving ahead with, their TV shows. Same with AEW, same with Impact. I think AEW has already taped everything that they wanted to for like the next month. I don't think this is going to be over by next month. I hate to say it, because I was one of those people who said originally, oh, it's going to blow over in a month. It's not going to be that simple. Even when we get down to like the cases here in the States start to dwindle down, everything's still going to be closed for a while until we get back down to like 0 cases. And even then, I feel like it's going to be a few months out until everything reopens again, just to be safe. That being said, though, I'm not a big fan of them moving ahead with the TV shows. But then again, I said that WrestleMania should have been not scrapped, but rather postponed. And hey, they went ahead with it, and it turned out to be very entertaining, at least in my opinion. So we'll see how it plays out. We really have no idea for certain what they're doing yet, but only time will tell. Hunter_610, his question for Twitter was, again, kind of on a related note, do you think Money in the Bank will remain? How do you feel about them doing pay-per-views going forward in the PC? I feel like we would just get used to them at some point. Honestly, I already have. I hate to say it, but I feel like I've already gotten used to it because I watch so much fucking wrestling. Between the stuff I've seen from WWE and AEW, I've already gotten used to the no crowd thing. Not that it doesn't bother me. I'm not like, oh, this show's great because there's no crowd. Like, obviously not. It would be ideal if there was an audience there. It hurts certain companies more than others. Like NXT, their product is like largely dependent on the audience because their crowds are so hot anyway. With Raw, they can cut promos. It's a little different. AEW, they put on one of their best episodes ever about a month ago in front of no audience, which sucked, but the show was very good with the Hardy debut, the Brody Lee debut. And I thought last week's show was also very, very good. So it obviously depends on the week. How do I feel about them doing the pay-per-views at the PC? Listen, if they're going to still tape TV, they kind of have to do the pay-per-views too. It sucks, trust me. But if they could do WrestleMania at the PC, they can fucking do Money in the Bank there too. I know it sounds ridiculous, like, oh, another ladder match at the PC. Like, it's weird, but we just got a ladder match at WrestleMania with Jimmy Uso, Kofi, and John Morrison. And yeah, it sucked with no crowd because those ladder matches are very, again, crowd-heavy. But they're going to do it anyway, and I don't see why they wouldn't. If they can continue to tape TV, they probably will. I don't know if it's going to be at the PC, though. That's my question. We don't know that for sure. We will find out very soon. Friday's SmackDown is right around the corner. So they can't tape TV at the PC for SmackDown. They're going to have to go somewhere else, if not cancel it altogether. They very well may have to take a break. Would I want to see that? Honestly, it may be for the best. The performers are definitely clamoring for it. You got to know that they're looking forward to hopefully having that break that is long overdue. They never really get it, which again, it's not practical in a 24/7 wrestling world. You can't really take breaks from storylines. I know Lucha Underground did it, but you can't really do that with a show like Raw, with the TV contracts that they have. A lot of these networks, Fox, USA, they sign shows like WWE and AEW because it's a 24/7 show. Not 24/7, but like it's every week, every year, They don't take breaks. That's why they sign up for that shit, because it's constant programming. For them to, if it was up to them to take a break, putting the whole pandemic aside, then I don't think these TV networks would be as willing to sign with them as they are, and pay them as much money as they have, especially in the case of Fox, which I think was a completely overblown deal in the long run, now that we kind of look at it in the grander scheme of things. But the break is very possible. I think there is still a good possibility we could see that at some point. But as I said, I feel like they will find one way or another At least in WWE, I don't know about an AEW, but reportedly they already taped their shit, so who knows. I feel like they're good for right now. For WWE, one way or another, Vince McMahon will find a way to get his programming on the air, whether it means taping from his fucking backyard or doing God knows what. They're going to find a way to tape that Money in the Bank pay-per-view and taping Raw, SmackDown, NXT 205 Live, God knows what else, from the PC for the foreseeable future, at least until they can't, and they have no other option. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the YouTube Machine. Great content, as always, on his YouTube show, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Check it out. Had a lot of great content up for WrestleMania weekend. His first question was, after the Boneyard and Firefly Funhouse matches, could you see WWE doing more cinematic matches on the bigger shows, or was this simply a one-time thing because of the pandemic? Obviously, the pandemic had everything to do with it. If we did not have the pandemic, I think WrestleMania might have been better because it would have been in front of an actual audience. But I do think it's not like they weren't planning on doing. It's not like, oh, we have a pandemic, we should probably film one of these cinematic matches with Cena and Wyatt, and then Taker and Styles. Excuse me. They were already planning on doing those matches like a while ago. I remember reading about Styles and Taker in mid-February. They were already building to it at Super Showdown in late February. So they would have gone ahead with doing a regular match between the two, which would not have been the same, obviously. It would have been a very throwaway match, and I mean, Styles probably would have gotten a decent match out of him, but I think it greatly benefited from taking that cinematic approach, and no one knew what the hell to expect going in, but it ended up being a very fun match. Same with Cena and Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse. Will they do more of this stuff in the future, even when they have crowds back? I hope so. Maybe not on pay-per-views, but maybe as an episode of Raw or as its own special. I don't know. But will they make it a regular thing? Like, do I want to see one again as soon as Money in the Bank? Probably not. But if done, on occasion, because again, I assume, and this is merely my speculation, don't want to instill fear in anyone, I think this whole thing with no crowds is going to go on at least until August. I hate to say it, but that's just my gut feeling. So maybe space them out, do shit on SmackDown, definitely on Raw and SmackDown, because they've been replaying a lot of classic matches. They didn't really do that this week for Raw, which I thought was nice. It was more so squash matches and stuff. But with SmackDown, why it's on the show anyway, do stuff like that with The Fiend, if they can, if they're able to. Tape more cinematic, maybe not matches, but segments like what we see in Lucha Underground. So again, I think the success of those segments have definitely, hopefully, given Vince McMahon more faith as to the fact that they may work and that they could do more of it. Then again, the final deletion, or rather the ultimate deletion, by all accounts was also a success in WWE with the ratings. It went on last, people enjoyed it, and they never did anything else like that again, at least until this year with WrestleMania 36. So who knows for a fact? I can't sit here and say, oh, Vince was, he was won over. He got won over. Those two matches won him over, and they may do more stuff like that in the future. I feel like he's more of a classic wrestling guy, which I totally get. And I think a lot of people are like that. But it doesn't hurt to have variety every now and again, and I thought those two matches, that's what I want to see more of. I'm a big movie fan, and a lot of these matches could benefit. Since there's no crowd, you might as well do shit like that where you can, incorporate music and make it dramatic. Because a lot of this shit is movie-esque anyway, so you might as well make a full-on movie out of it. I think that's awesome. Will they do more of it? I don't see it being, again, a regular thing, but I would love to see it be done more, at least regularly on the regular TV shows, with backstage segments, pre-taped stuff like that. At least with the characters that could use it, like The Fiend and maybe The Undertaker if he sticks around, which I don't think he will, at least for the foreseeable future. But definitely with Wyatt, though, on SmackDown would be great. Would definitely make that show more bearable than it already is. Because not that it's already more bearable, but it would make it more bearable in the sense that it's not bearable right now. It is completely intolerable sometimes to watch SmackDown. Anyway, moving on to second question. So Braun won the Universal Championship shortly after his comments slamming indie wrestlers. Was this Vince once again rewarding bad behavior, so to speak, or just a panic move because Reigns decided to take care of himself and they needed an opponent for Goldberg quickly? Absolutely the latter. I would not say, he slammed the indie guys and that's why we're going to put the belt on him. Obviously, that wasn't a factor. I wouldn't be surprised if Vince didn't even know about that. Because why would he? The guy's never online. It's not like he slammed the company. Unless he slams WWE or says something super racist or whatever, I don't think the company gives a shit. He's in hot water with fans, and rightfully so, because it was a really dumb thing to say, as I said here on the show a couple weeks ago when I addressed this. I'm sure WWE doesn't give a fuck. I mean, it's not like did he go back and delete it? He may have, but It's not like he has heat. The guy went in there and won the fucking belt. If he had so much heat from that comment, they just would have given the belt to Jeff Hardy or like Sheamus. I heard Jeff Hardy was an option. I don't know if I believe that, but it would have been better than Braun in my opinion, because at least Jeff isn't heavily damaged as much as Braun is inside the ring in terms of booking. I think that would have been cool, but that's just the Jeff Hardy mark. That's just the Jeff Hardy mark in me speaking. But no, I don't think it was a case of them rewarding bad behavior. I mean, hey, Sasha Banks, I guess that's a different story because she had like mental health issues, whatever. She just kind of up and walked out, and she came back with a push. Granted, she didn't win the championship like Braun did, but I don't know. I don't really think it's a case of them rewarding bad behavior. I wouldn't put the belt on him. It didn't really make me mad that they put the belt on him because he said this dumb shit online. It was more so the fact that that he's so heavily damaged from a booking standpoint that it doesn't make any sense. For Braun to come out of nowhere and win the belt, hey, Jeff Hardy coming out of nowhere to win the belt also would have been completely random and it would have made no sense. But it would have been better than Braun because, again, at least Braun still gets good reactions. Jeff is just way more popular. And yeah, he's not exactly a young guy like Braun, but he hasn't had a million title shots in the last 3 years either, being booked to look like a loser at every turn. The guy hadn't been on TV since he got pinned by Sami Zayn a month ago. So I thought it was incredibly stupid, but that's just me. I do think there's a very real possibility that had WrestleMania gone on as planned, they would have done Braun and Tyson Fury too, because they took the belt off of Braun. I thought they would do Braun and Sheamus, but they took the belt off of Braun even before they started taping the PC shows. And Tyson Fury even confirmed recently, I was supposed to be at WrestleMania before the whole pandemic thing happened. So I think there's a very real possibility that would have been the match for Mania before the whole change happened. And Braun even said, now I don't think he's lying when he said a couple days ago on the bump, I think on Sunday morning, I don't really watch the show, I catch the highlights though, he had said that they called him like the day before as an emergency, bring your gear, blah, 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 and was booked to win the world title that night because Roman Reigns had to pull out like the day before the show. So I definitely think it's the latter. I'm not a fan of it because, the comment thing is one thing, the comments that he made. It's more so, again, the booking of his character, that he's been so heavily damaged, it's really just hard to care. His third question, all things considered, do you believe WrestleMania 36 was a success? Entirely subjective, but I think it was. I think it succeeded in its goal of getting people's minds off the current situation. And listen, you can't really grade Mania on a curve because it's like, oh, it should be, if you're not entertained, then shut the fuck up. Like, I'm not going to be one of those people. I'm not going to sit here and say, listen, if you weren't entertained, you're not a wrestling fan, or you didn't like, whatever, you shouldn't be watching because you should absolutely enjoy what they give you just because of the current situation. Absolutely not. I see it from that standpoint, but I also got to grade it as, from a logical standpoint too. Did what they did make sense? Did what they did, was it entertaining? Did it pay off? Were there enough good matches? I would say so. It is definitely disputable which night was better between night 1 and night 2. I've heard night 1 was better, which I tend to agree with, but I also like night 2. The Drew Brock match was a great but they gave the belt to Drew. The two cinematic matches I thought were great. Rhea and Charlotte had a great match. Kevin and Seth had a very good match. The ladder match was awesome. So again, I thought both nights were entertaining. I was left satisfied. There were absolutely things that I wasn't a fan of and whatever. In regards to, again, Braun winning the belt and Rhea dropping the NXT Women's Championship. Those were probably the two biggest matches, or the two biggest outcomes I had an issue with. And then, like, the Corbin-Elias match I could give two shits about. So it wasn't a perfect show, but again, if you want to say, oh, there was certain, there's filler in certain show, that's what took away from it. Dude, you could say that about any Mania. Any Mania has filler. Last year's, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, every fucking Mania has filler. So if you want to say, oh, it would have been great had it not been for Corbin and Elias, well, obviously, it has nothing to do with the PC. I thought it was a good show. I thought it was a success. I thought, for the most part, they did the right thing. Giving the belt to Drew, having Wyatt win. Didn't expect AJ to win once it was announced that there's a Boneyard match. But I thought both matches far exceeded my expectations. And those were probably the best parts of both shows, to be honest with you, in terms of pure spectacle, which is what WrestleMania should be all about. So I enjoyed the show. If you didn't, that's fine. Not just solely speaking to you, John, but just anyone in general. I thought given the circumstances, they made the most of it. They went in there and delivered a very fun two-night event. I would like to see them do more 2-night events in the future with Mania, just because I think, one, having been there since fucking 12:30 last year, I'm not a fan of it. The show getting done at 10, 10:15, 10:30 this year, perfect. Absolutely perfect. I don't know how that would work logistically in terms of like selling tickets and how much they would cost and whatever. But people are saying, oh, it's the TakeOver the night before. You can't do it with the TakeOver. Well, just move TakeOver to Wednesday. They tape NXT live on Wednesdays now anyway, so why the fuck not? You could do NXT TakeOver on Wednesday. You could do the Hall of Fame on Thursday. This is going to be a lot, I know, but, I mean, people would pay to do it because, people have done it in the past. But NXT live on Wednesday with TakeOver, Thursday Hall of Fame, Friday SmackDown, Saturday Mania Part 1, Sunday Mania Part 2, and then Monday Raw. Again, a lot of shows. That is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 shows in a row? Listen, wrestling fans will go to anything. They will go to everything if they want to do. I've gone to everything in the past. Not at Mania weekend, but I've come close. That's not even counting Access and all that other shit. So, or like G1 Supercard, or like the Supercard of Honor show the Ring of Honor puts on and all that other stuff. The Impact shows. Hey, people can pick and choose what they want to go to. Just because they have 6 shows doesn't mean that you have to go. I mean, most people will because it's wrestling fans, but like, I will say if they do another 2-day WrestleMania next year, what they would have to do is advertise the card for both nights in advance. Because I ain't paying $100 to see AJ and Taker on night 2, only to have it happen on night 1 and I'm not there for it. So they would have to advertise the cards for both shows in advance. And you can decide which one to go to or both. And people would absolutely go to both, 100%. They can make way more money off of that. Bottom line, though, I thought Mania this year was a success. I was left satisfied by and large. And I know this isn't part of your question, but I would like to see more 2-day Manias in the future. His next question here. Now that the news broke that Rhea apparently has to renew her work visa, does it make sense that they switch the NXT Women's Championship to Charlotte? Also, do you think fans have gotten completely sick of Charlotte having title run after title run? I have a lot of thoughts about this. I'll probably save most of it for Wrestle Rant Radio tomorrow. Here's my 2 cents on it. The whole work visa thing, I absolutely believe it. I would believe that was the reason why they took the championship off of her. Because reportedly, according to this WrestleZone report that I had read yesterday, I think it was either WrestleZone or SC Scoops, whatever. The whole thing was that with Rhea, they have to tape TV like coming up very soon, either this weekend or next week. Rhea will not be around for the upcoming TV tapings, whether that be Raw, SmackDown, NXT. I assume it's everything. 205 Live, that they want to continue doing that, which I assume they will, for anyone who cares, for the 2 people who care, and that includes myself. I would assume that they took the championship off of her because she won't be there. I could absolutely believe that they took the championship off of her because it was just their dumb booking decision, which has happened before. Again, I put nothing past this company. To me, it makes no sense. AJ losing, I get. Braun winning the title, I kind of get. He's a full-time guy. Stupid, dumb, whatever, but I get it. Even Shayna losing. Honestly, I didn't have a major issue with that. I would love to have seen Shayna win the championship, just go in there and kill Becky, but it keeps her in chase mode, prolongs the feud, doesn't kill her momentum. It's fine. The Rhea thing, I do not understand at all. Yes, she went in there and looked competitive. Yes, it was a great match. There is absolutely no reason for Charlotte to be in NXT. And for anyone creaming their pants over the idea of, oh, Charlotte versus the Dakota Guy, or Charlotte versus Tegan Nox, and all this other dumb shit, I think it's just a complete waste because you could just have those people face Charlotte when she comes up to the main roster in 6 months. So in my opinion, it's a complete waste because you could just do that shit when they're on the main roster soon enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a complete waste of time. But, anyway, though, I thought just putting the belt on Rhea, or keeping the belt on Rhea, would have been the best possible outcome, just because Charlotte being champion, yes, it presents a lot of great matches, but you can do all those great matches when those people get to the main roster in 6 months to a year from now. You know what I mean? I know there's nothing for Charlotte at the moment, like what would you do with Charlotte? Honestly, I don't give a fuck. The NXT Women's Division is more important. They already have enough women that deserve a title shot. Io, Dakota, Tegan, Candice, all deserve title opportunities before Charlotte, who has already held the fucking thing. It's not even like Charlotte's never been NXT Women's Champion before. She's a former NXT Women's Champion. We were told a number of years ago the NXT Women's Championship doesn't count. Her 10 titles or whatever the fuck it is, they did not count the NXT Women's Championship. So all of a sudden, because Charlotte's holding it, or maybe because they're retroactively saying, oh, it's because it's on TV, now it counts. Get the fuck out of here. If it didn't count before, it shouldn't count now. And if they want to count it just because Charlotte won another championship and she's on the main roster now, so it counts, That's fucking bullshit to me. But that would make it 12. She's won 12 titles in 5 years, or 6 years, if you want to include her first NXT title run in 2014. That's completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. And yes, people have gotten completely sick of Charlotte because of the constant title wins, and I totally get it. Listen, I defended Charlotte on my show last week on Wrestle Rant Radio. She goes in there and has great match after great match with Sasha, Bayley, Becky, Rhea, anyone. Honestly, she will go in there and have a great match with practically anybody, maybe except for Tamina and Alicia Fox and people like that. Otherwise, she can get a great match out of pretty much anybody. That doesn't mean they have to put the championship on her ad nauseum. I know she was only champion for a couple days last year on multiple occasions. Give her one meaningful championship reign, and then we'll talk. Maybe this will be it. I just don't think it's the NXT Women's Championship. Hey, fuck, have Shayna beat Becky, and then you can have Charlotte beat Shayna down the road. That, to me, would make sense. Giving her the NXT Women's title, to me, is a complete fucking joke. Yes, it could lead to great matches, but there's already great matches to be had in NXT anyway. I think that's completely ridiculous, but that's just me. At noob_n_co 1991, their first question was, essentially, because the wording of their question was completely fucked up, which WWE superstars have made the biggest impressions during these empty arena performance center episodes of Raw and SmackDown? You probably want me to say Asuka, because Asuka's like your all-time favorite. I honestly don't give two shits about Asuka. I really don't. I like Asuka, but the whole, like, oh, I'm dancing, I just think it's completely obnoxious. I know she's a heel. I know that's what she's supposed to be doing. People love Asuka on commentary. I'm definitely in the minority here. 100%. People will listen to this and be pissed at me. How can you not like Asuka? I don't. I really don't. I find her incredibly annoying. The whole dancing and the speaking in Japanese shit, I just think it's... I don't know. I don't take her seriously at all. I really don't. So, not Asuka. I would say Paul Heyman with his promos have been awesome. Orton, Edge, Rollins, really anyone on Raw cutting consistent promos, I think have been the MVPs of these empty arena shows. The Fiend, the promos that he's been cutting, the skits and whatever on SmackDown last week, I like, but that's just me. The Fiend has been an MVP. Those are the only ones I can really think of, but anyone from Raw, really, again, that's been cutting promos. People like Kevin Owens has been must-see on the show. McIntyre hasn't really even appeared on Raw. If you really think about it, he's only appeared on WrestleMania for the last month now. He wasn't on Raw for like the last 3 weeks before the pay-per-view, and he wasn't even on the post-WrestleMania Raw either, because the segment that he was a part of WrestleMania. So anyway, I would say anyone that's been cutting promos consistently on Raw, Becky Lynch too, have been the best part of those PC shows. Your second question, which match will get the Boneyard, Firefly, Funhouse treatment in the future? I would say a match for the women, whether it's between Becky and Shayna or Asuka and Charlotte. I mean, I don't really want to see that, to be honest with you. With those women, I mean, they can go out there and have a great match. Styles and Taker, at this current point, would have been incredibly disappointing compared to what they could have done 10 years ago, 5-10 years ago. Becky and Shayna, I thought was a good match. Yes, it was way too short. It only got 10 minutes. But they can go in there and have a good match. They do not need to go in there and have a cinematic-style match. Like even Cena and The Fiend. That match, had they done it, people were complaining, oh, it wasn't a match. Dude, the match would have sucked. Did you watch WrestleMania 30? They replayed the show God knows how many times in the last couple weeks. They've done the match 1,000,000 times. Their chemistry in the ring is really not that good. And to be quite honest with you, Wyatt is not the greatest in-ring wrestler. I love the guy. His matches aren't the best. But the cinematic stuff really benefits his style. It really does. I think he shines in that environment. He is perfect in that environment. I don't want to see a match with the women in there unless like it's two completely incompetent performers. But a lot of their women are great. All the people you mentioned are great. So there's no reason for them to have like a cinematic style match. Unless it's like a street fight or something. There's no real reason for it. I said this a couple days ago. People will definitely not agree with me. Taker and Sting. Now, I know the ship sailed 5-6 years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago, whatever. I agree with you there. At the same time, though, part of me still wants to see them interact. And I think it would be cool if they brought in Sting to do it, but in a pre-taped environment. Obviously, as a match, it ain't happening. Sting can't really... He will never be cleared for in-ring competition, but is that technically considered in-ring competition? That's my question. So, maybe not at, like, people were saying SummerSlam. I mean, it would have to be at Mania next year. They're not going to do one of these matches at Mania next year if they have an actual audience. But in a perfect world, what I would do, and again, a lot of people won't agree with this, Taker and Sting. I think that'd be cool. In a Boneyard-style setting, I think that would be sick. But that's just me. Otherwise... The Fiend versus really anyone, because his matches have not been the greatest, but if they do more stuff like what they did with him and Cena, I think the characters' matches would work a lot better than what we've been getting in recent months. At E13A, from Twitter, their question was, Do you think next year's WrestleMania will be too big for just one night? Trademark. I like I said earlier, I don't think it will be. I think it was a one-and-done type thing. I think even New Japan, they did it this year. I don't think they're planning on doing a 2-day Wrestle Kingdom next year. Now that they haven't run shows in months, so it sucks. And we don't even know if there's going to be a Wrestle Kingdom next year at this point. At this rate, I assume there will be. But they didn't say anything about it being 2 years this year, or rather next year, despite it being 2 years this year. And from what I gathered, a lot of people thought it was, a good idea, and it worked, and whatever. I mean, both of their shows were like 5 hours, and people don't complain about that for whatever reason. But like with Mania, the 2 shows were, 3.5 hours? And night one's case, it was 3 hours. And I don't count the kickoff show because nothing even happened on the kickoff show. Next year would be a different story, but let's count the main show here. It was 3 hours. That's perfect. 5 hours is fucking ridiculous. I'm not staying up until 1 to stay up until 1 to watch the beginning of it, and then stay up until 6 to watch the rest. That's completely ridiculous, in my opinion. But for next year, I think it would be cool. Like I said earlier, I don't know if it would be entirely practical, but I do think they can make more money off of it, which is really what they listen to, not the fans, but rather their wallets. And I think it paid off this year. So hopefully this year, was kind of a thing for the future. And I have said before, I think on this very show, and before anyone throws it in my face, yes, I have not been a fan of the idea in the past. I thought it was dumb to do 2 events. I think 1 is better because that's more traditional. But after seeing how they executed it this year, it gives you more to look forward to. It spreads out the fun, and you're not going to bed at 12:30. So personally, I know I go to bed at fucking 2 o'clock in the morning anyway, but it helps save my work. I went to bed a lot earlier this year than I would have in years past, because the show ended a lot earlier, so it worked out a lot better. But I don't think they will do it, but do I think they should do it? If they can work it out logistically, then yeah, I do think they should. At Jeremy8911, his first question was, would you like to see a John Cena and Bray Wyatt buddy comedy movie or a TV show? That might be taking it a step too far. I thought what they did on Sunday was great. They're not the type of characters to make an entire TV show around. I mean, it worked as a match, quote-unquote, not really as a TV show. Who I would like to see get their own TV show, though, is Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle, as well as Daniel Bryan and Drew Gulak. Those 2 pairings are amazing. Those people I would like to see a buddy comedy movie with. Not really, not exactly Cena and Wyatt. Although Wyatt, I do think I am shocked. At least as far as I know, they have never casted Bray Wyatt in any of their movies. And those 2 masterpiece matches that they did, those 2 cinematic style matches they did at Mania, were better than any movie they've ever produced. And I'm a big See No Evil fan. It was much better than that. I fucking love those matches this weekend. So, that being said, with Bray Wyatt, I think he would benefit from doing more movies. Because at the end of the day, the guy is more of a character than a wrestler. If he was to suffer some sort of career-ending injury tomorrow, I think he would thrive in acting. A lot like Edge did. Edge had no aspirations of becoming an actor, but after seeing him on Vikings, Haven, they just covered this on his 24 a couple days ago, he did really well, honestly better than like Rock and Cena, to be honest with you, although he'll never get the parts that they do. But I thought he was a pretty damn good actor, and I think Bray Wyatt would be even better, because it seems like he is more of an actor or a character than he really is a professional wrestler. And they don't book him as a wrestler either, because they don't know how to book Bray Wyatt properly. But I do think he would thrive in that type of environment, just not with John Cena. His second question, if we got an NWO revival with John Cena, who do you think should be in the group? Well, I don't want to see it. I'm not even going to answer this because I think it'd be dumb to bring back the NWO. Now, I will say this, though. The only time I would have liked to have seen the NWO come back, and the only time I think it would have made sense, and not to say that they were going to do this, because I got no indication, I never got any feeling that they were going to, but I was pitching for the return of the NWO 9 years ago, when Cena, I think they were going to turn him heel, I thought they were going to turn him heel, before the first Rock match. They didn't. They should have, they didn't, whatever. I wanted to see an NWO with Cena, Awesome Truth, when they were doing the whole, conspiracy thing with The Miz and R-Truth. There's a conspiracy against this, blah, blah, blah. And Kevin Nash, who obviously has ties to the original NWO, and he was back on the show at that point. I think that would have been cool. Yeah, so Cena, Nash, Awesome Truth which sounds completely ridiculous on paper, I know. But I think it would have made sense, given the story they were telling at that point. They brought up the NWO. It didn't really go anywhere. Triple H, too, maybe you could include in there, because him and Kevin Nash, it looked like they were headed towards, turning Triple H heel before Nash got hurt, and they had to put Punk in there with Triple H, and it just never happened. But Triple H, Kevin Nash, Cena, Awesome Truth, NWO, I think would have worked. In 2020, I have no desire to see that. And trust me, I love the NWO, love hearing Rockhouse, as I did on Sunday. But just with Cena, I think the Cena heel turn ship has sailed. I said a long time ago, maybe after he's done, long after he's done, but he's been done in active competition for a long time. So if they haven't already turned him heel, they probably never will. And I just don't really know that rehashing something from 20 years ago is the best way to make people relevant and whatever. They already have enough factions as it is. The NWO is basically Undisputed Era in 2020 anyway, so we don't really need the NWO. Thoughts on my idea of Liv Morgan getting a 1-2-3 kid-like scenario, upset win over Becky Lynch for the title with Becky getting too cocky. So you're pitching for an idea where Liv upsets Becky for the championship. Zero desire to see that. I'm sorry, but I have zero desire to see that. To build up Becky for so long, and listen, I don't hate the idea of giving someone an upset win over Becky after she's been champion for a year or two confident. I like the story. I'm not shitting on your story. I think Liv Morgan is the wrong person for the role, though, because she's just not that good. She had a decent match with Asuka at the beginning of Raw this week. I'll give her that. Her character is not interesting enough. Yeah, she shows off her fucking skin with her gear. Who cares? People will go crazy over that. They'll cream their pants over Liv Morgan's gear. Aside from that, there's really nothing to me that interests me about Liv Morgan. She's never been that good in the ring. Never really been a big fan of her, ability to talk or whatever, her promo ability. I thought she was perfectly fine as a supporting role in the Riot Squad. That's really where I thought she did well. On her own, I don't really care because she's not that good in the ring. The Riot Squad worked, although they were booked terribly. I thought it worked because it helped hide her weaknesses as an in-ring performer. You put her in there with Lana and even people that can go, like Asuka and Natalya. She's all right. She's passable. She's better than, other people. Maybe not Dana Brooke. I feel like they're kind of on the same level. Tamina, like I said earlier, I would rather see Liv Morgan in that spot than someone like Tamina. That doesn't make it right, though. I think, they build up. Bianca's not really an underdog. I don't really think people would look at her beating Becky as an upset just because she is, she never was NXT Women's Champion, but she is very accomplished. She is very good. Liv Morgan ain't the right person for that role. I think, 1-2-3 kid, he was actually really, really good. Sean Waltman was great. Liv Morgan, not so much. So maybe someone else in that role. Candice LeRae. Candice LeRae has never been NXT Women's Champion. At least Bianca was undefeated for a while. Candice has never really had anything going in NXT, but she is actually very good. I would rather see Candice be called up and used for that role against Becky Lynch than Liv Morgan. That, to me, would just be random, and I have no desire to see Liv Morgan as the Raw Women's Champion. Let's see. Next question from at Iwagoo91. Your thoughts on the new Undertaker? Is it really a new Undertaker, though, if we've had the American Badass before? Either way, I love this incarnation of Taker. We really should have gotten this years ago, and I've always said, if we didn't get Taker at 34, if we didn't get American Badass Taker at 34, when it would have made sense for him to come back after a year after he lost to The Undertaker at 33, or rather, he lost to Roman Reigns, Taker did, at WrestleMania 33, and he put up the robe and all this other shit, it would have been perfect. Fucking Kid Rock was there. He could have done his theme song. We didn't get it. He came back as the dead man, disappointingly enough. That would have been the time to do it. They didn't do it. But they did it this year. We got American Badass back in that match. The promo that he cut last week on Raw was awesome. Probably one of the best promos he's ever cut, at least in the last 10 years or so. Because he was an actual human being, and I fucking loved that. So, again, I'm not really sure if it's a new Taker, per se. But I do love this side of Taker. Having him be more human, he looks a lot better. What we saw in the Boneyard match was a lot better than the matches he's been having in recent years, which have been complete shit for the most part. So, yeah, I'm digging it. Hopefully we get to see more of this badass, American Badass Undertaker going forward, and he doesn't go back to being the dead man as soon as, SummerSlam or whatever, I could see him retiring as the dead man on his 30-year anniversary with Survivor Series. I wouldn't have an issue with that because he came in as the dead man. He can leave as the dead man. I don't have an issue with that, but, if he's not retiring, then yes, he should, Honestly, the Boneyard match was his last match. I wouldn't complain. Because the way that he went out, it felt like a farewell. A little bit. That wasn't my first thought, but the way he put his arm up in the air, and it was awesome. It was fucking sick. So, again, I don't see that happening, but it would be cool. to see Taker go out, have that be his last match. Or, again, if he goes out as the dead man, I get it. But if he's not retiring anytime soon, stick with the American Badass, because to me it's way more bearable, and it has a lot longer of a shelf life than the dead man character does at this point. His second question, had Daniel Bryan not been released by the WWE for strangling Justin Roberts with his tie, remember that, what do you think his role as a member of the Nexus could have been? I've always wondered that as well. So Bryan got cut the night, not that night, but like a couple of days later. He was fired right after the Nexus made their debut. Because like he just mentioned, he strangled Justin Roberts with his own tie, which he was not given the clearance to do, even though they told him, go out there and do whatever you want. I guess not go that far. Whatever. I guess it's okay for Orton to strangle, Edge. And I know it's a little different, but like he used the gym equipment to try to like fucking hang Edge. It's okay for Orton to do that mere weeks removed from the Chris Benoit documentary, but it's not okay for Bryan to do the necktie thing. Whatever. Even though I thought it looked sick and the spit to Cena's face, I guess that was also a contributing factor, which, who cares? I'm sure Cena didn't give a shit. They fired him for that, even though it was their fault. I've always wondered what would they have done with Bryan had he stuck around. It always looked like, if you go back and watch those episodes of Raw, that they were building to Justin Gabriel breaking out and being the big breakout star of that group until he didn't, and the whole group went down together. Maybe because so many people got hurt, like Skip Sheffield got hurt. Michael Tarver got hurt. He was bumped from the group. I feel like Darren Young got kicked out at one point. So they got down to like 4 or 5 members by the end there. And they brought in other people like Curtis Axel or Michael McGillicuddy at that point, Husky Harris, who is now Bray Wyatt. But still, I do think Justin Gabriel could have had a bigger breakout role, because he would like take his time with a 450 splash. It would look like he was hesitating, which made it look like, okay, he may be breaking out at some point onto his own, and that just never happened. So I feel like that may have been the role for Bryan. I feel like ultimately he would have broken away at some point, because the feud with The Miz wrote itself. Like, I feel like things worked out a lot better for Bryan than they would have if he was with the Nexus, because, like, what the fuck happened to Darren Young? Yeah, he won the tag team titles with the Primetime Players, which was entertaining. A lot of those people went nowhere. Heath Slater is the only one still around. David Otunga was a loser. Gabriel eventually left the company a couple years later because he was unhappy. Slater's still there, but he's doing absolutely nothing right now. I'm sure he's requested his release multiple times, and they just have nothing for him, or they just denied it, whatever. He has not been on TV at all for several years now, actually, I would say. So, aside from, I think, one match with Daniel Bryan a couple weeks ago. Other than that, though, Bryan probably would have broken out around SummerSlam time. They probably would have had Bryan... maybe instead of kicking out Darren Young, it would have been Daniel Bryan. I'll say that instead of Darren Young, because it looked like they had plans for Darren Young too. It looked like they were going to break Darren Young away from the Nexus and then have him come back and feud with the Nexus. Because remember, he returned one night on Raw at like the end of an episode, or people probably don't remember this, but he came back a month later and nobody fucking cared. Literally like a week later, he was on Superstars. No joke. So like, I definitely think that was what happened, that they were like, okay, this isn't working, it's just whatever. That probably would have been Bryan, though. They would have done the SummerSlam match because that was their end goal. Had Team Cena win, which was incredibly dumb all these years later. Even a decade later, it's still stupid. And then... broken Bryan off from the group and had him feud with The Miz. That just to me would have made sense. He probably would have ended up in the same spot, but it was cool that he came back at SummerSlam to help Team Cena beat Team Nexus, and then The Miz cost Bryan a spot in the match, which again obviously broke off and they had their own feud after that. So it worked out. It worked out pretty well, probably even better in the end than it would have originally had Bryan stuck around. His next question, 2 things about what could have been for Eddie Guerrero had he lived. 1, was he supposed to win the World Heavyweight Championship off of Batista? And 2, was he supposed to face Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 22? 2 things that have been heavily rumored over the years. Neither, I don't think, have ever been confirmed. At least in the World Championship question, the first one that you asked, no, I don't think he was ever supposed to beat Batista for the title. If anything, I think they were building towards Batista, Orton, and Eddie. And I think it was supposed to be Orton, if anyone, taking the championship off of Batista. I think the end game the entire time was to build to Batista versus Orton at WrestleMania. And then Batista got hurt, obviously. So that didn't happen. I do think, though, they were going to build a Batista and Orton at Mania. I don't know if that was the plans for that started before or after Eddie passed away. But I feel like they would have probably kept the belt on Batista anyway, going into WrestleMania 22, and then he would have lost it to Randy, who likely would have won, I think, the Royal Rumble in 2006. So, no, I don't think Eddie was ever supposed to win the World Heavyweight Championship. I know they teased it, and they were doing the Batista-Eddie feud there for a while in the final few months of the year. But I do think all signs would have pointed to them doing Batista and Orton and Mania for the title, regardless of who would have been champion. So, no, I think Eddie's run in the world title scene at that point would have ended anyway. Your second question, I've never heard that confirmed, though I think that was a lot more likely than him winning the World Championship. I do think Eddie and Shawn, I think a writer confirmed this a number of years ago, that we were supposed to get Eddie and Shawn at WrestleMania 22. And then when obviously Eddie passed in November it was, they shifted plans. Because remember, they started the build to Shawn and Vince like in January. So honestly, that would have made sense. I know they were on two separate brands, but so were Shawn and Kurt Angle, and they did that match anyway. So Shawn was left without a tag team, or without a dance partner for Mania. So they transitioned into the Vince and Shawn story instead. So yeah, I tend to believe that. I don't think that's ever been confirmed. Again, I don't think that's ever been confirmed. But I know a writer for the company had said, I think at least he either wanted to see it happen or there were talks of having it happen. I don't think it was ever set in stone. But I do believe that was probably the case because in retrospect, Shawn and Vince at Mania is so fucking random. And yeah, Shawn made the most of it. It was a fun no-holds-barred match. It made sense with the whole Montreal screwjob thing they were doing at the time with Brett going in the Hall of Fame and whatever. But still, like, your long-term plan for Mania for Shawn Michaels is Vince McMahon. So yeah, I definitely believe it would have been Shawn and Eddie had Eddie still been alive. Let's see. Scarlett, they got a number of questions here. First one being best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars, number 24 and number 25. So I'm talking everything from like Dynamite last week and the week before. So there's a lot of things crammed into one here from what I can gather. The best of both shows from the last couple of weeks, anything involving Jericho, Matt Hardy, Broken Matt Hardy, and Vanguard 1 has been amazing. Especially the Vanguard 1 Jericho segment last week. I thought that was the best part of the entire show. That was comedy gold. The Gargano Ciampa promo 2 weeks ago I thought was great in the empty arena where they set up tonight's empty arena match, whatever. I thought that was really, really good. Io Shirai returning I thought was really cool. The Aaliyah match was whatever, but I thought Io Shirai coming back at all I thought was great. Matt Riddle and Roderick Strong had a really fun match 2 weeks ago on the main event of NXT. I thought they worked well together. The triple threat match from last week's NXT for the North American Championship, Keith Lee, Dominic Dijakovic, Damian Priest, all, I thought that was a fantastic match too. Well, again, it kind of hurt not having an audience there, but it was still a good match. I think it was last week? Yeah, last week was Omega and Trent. Kenny Omega versus Trent. Very good match. Kenny Omega versus Sammy Guevara from 2 weeks ago was great. And Lance Archer's debut versus Marco Stunt was fucking great. I think Marco Stunt was the perfect person to be putting in there with Lance Archer for his debut match. I thought they worked amazingly well together in the sense that Archer just went in there and fucking killed the guy. I thought that was amazing. I had to pause there for a second. There was actually an Amazon truck backing up, and you can hear the backup noise. You probably could hear it when I was going over the best of both shows. And it was going to continue if I continued on with the worst, but I had to pause because the truck wouldn't stop backing up. But anyway, fuck Amazon. I ordered something a couple weeks ago. I get it with the whole COVID thing, but like, maybe it's just toilet paper, but people are they really ordering that much shit off of Amazon to the point where like orders are backed up 3 weeks? I ordered something that should have been here in 2 days. It's coming in like 3 weeks. That makes absolutely no sense. I highly doubt they're shipping out fucking the masks and stuff over Amazon, so I thought that was totally ridiculous. Anyway, maybe I'm just complaining. The worst of both shows, Tyler Breeze and Austin Theory. The match was fine from 2 weeks ago. Having Austin Theory lose, and again, I realized that they didn't know at that point that Theory would be on the main roster soon after to, team with Angel Garza for the Raw Tag Team titles. But, I mean, why would I take that guy seriously as a threat when he just lost to Tyler Breeze of all people in the next day? Even if they didn't do that, though, he should not be losing to Tyler Breeze. Tyler Breeze, he's owed a win once in a while, not over an up-and-comer like Austin Theory. I thought that was a very odd decision. The Velveteen Dream Bobby Fish match I thought was enjoyable. It was well wrestled last week. It really hurt not having a crowd there, though, because Velveteen Dream is very audience-based, and having it go like 20 minutes when the outcome was never in doubt I thought was questionable. Kushida versus Joaquin Wilde, the match was okay. I thought they had a little fun match, but again, both guys are incredibly directionless right now. Hopefully, Wilde getting kidnapped leads to bigger and better things for the guy, because the whole babyface thing, whatever the hell he's doing right now, is a complete waste. And in the case of Kushida, the guy's been directionless since they signed him a year ago. So they really need to do something with him, despite the fact that he won this match. And then finally from AEW, I really couldn't find a lot of worsts, a lot of like bad things from both shows, or both episodes rather, they've put out in recent weeks. But the Brody Lee Vince McMahon impersonations have got to stop. The first one was funny. The second one was okay, cute, whatever, a little subtle jab at Vince. The third one last week was incredibly dumb. If his character is the exalted one, the leader of the Dark Order, is him just taking pot shots at Vince McMahon, who gives a fuck? Really, I will not give a shit. They will kill his day. I mean, I don't know if it's probably his idea, but like, if they continue on with that, I will lose all interest I had in Brody Lee. And he'll just expose himself as being no better than what WWE gave him credit for. Because he is a really good worker, but the whole Vince McMahon impersonation shit, it screams TNA. The TNA stench of 2004, 2005, 2006, when they took shots at Vince constantly. Scarlet One's next question: what was your longest nap? I slept for 15 hours straight last week, Tuesday through Wednesday. Holy fuck. Is it really a nap at that point if you're like basically sleeping for twice the amount of time that you should be overnight? Anyway, I can't say I've ever had a longest nap because I don't take naps. Probably whenever I was 3 or 4. That's not a shot at anyone who takes naps. I just don't take naps. I just have a lot of stuff to do, and I make sure I get the amount of sleep. Even if I go to bed really, really late, I make sure, if I can, try to get up later, so I still get 7-8 hours. I know that's not ideal for everybody. I totally get it. If you have to work long hours and you don't have much time to sleep and you have other shit to do, then yeah, nap makes sense. But if you have the ability to go to bed earlier or to wake up later, then do it. I mean, the nap thing to me just interrupts my rhythm of like doing stuff. I'd rather just get up, take a shower, be ready for the day, go to bed later if I have to, and just do my shit. The whole nap thing, to me, I've never done it. Just doesn't make sense to me. I'm up, awake and alert. When I get up, I am up. And sometimes I'll be tired if I go to bed really late the night before and I have to get up early. But other than that, I try to get as much. I'm very sleep conscious. I always try to get 8 hours if I can. That doesn't always necessarily mean, it doesn't always necessarily mean going to bed at 10 or 11. Some people have that luxury. I don't. But then, listen, I'm not complaining because I'm never tired. So who's the real winner there? Next question from also from Scarlet One, best and worst of WrestleMania 36. The best, like I said earlier, the two cinematic matches, Taker and Styles, Cena and Wyatt, I thought were both very good. The best wrestling matches were Ripley and Charlotte, the ladder match with John Morrison, Jimmy Uso, and Kofi Kingston, and Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins. All those matches I thought were very good. Becky and Sheena was all right. I thought that was solid. Everything else was kind of in the middle. The only two things I really did not care for on either show, honestly, were really just from night one. Charlotte winning the belt I thought was terrible, but the match itself was great. The only two matches I didn't really care for from night one, and really just on the whole, because from night two I really couldn't think of many matches I didn't give a shit about. The SmackDown Women's Championship match, it wasn't terrible. It was better than I thought it would be. It still wasn't that good, but it was, it was better than I thought it would be, so I'm not going to include that in the worsts. The worst of Mania, I would say, were Elias and Corbin. Not because it was terrible, but because it was just boring, and who cares? Who gives a fuck about Baron Corbin versus Elias? So I would put that in the worst category, even though the outcome was what it should have been. And then Goldberg versus Braun Strowman. Made no sense. The match was a joke. Braun winning was a joke. I just did not care about any of that. That was just a complete abomination. Their next question, I already talked about this, but did you hear about Rhea Ripley's work visa expiring? Yes. Whether it's true or not remains to be seen. You sent that in yesterday. Rhea Ripley has since come out and said that it's not true, that she's still in the U.S. The reports are bullshit, so I don't know who to believe here. But it would make sense if that was the reason why they took the championship off of her, so I guess we'll soon see if that's the case or not. If she's not on TV in the next month, then that would explain why they took the championship off of her, because she can't be in the country right now. Their next question, their final question here. Did you hear about Hulk Hogan's take on the coronavirus? Listen, I did. I'm a Hulkamaniac. I'm a Hulk Hogan fan. This guy makes it incredibly difficult for me to continue supporting him and defending him. As a person, I really have no thoughts on the guy. I just really enjoy him as a wrestler. I read his book. He's got a nice positive attitude. I could see what he was getting at. So basically, for anyone who missed it, he said that we don't need a vaccine for the coronavirus because he believes that God is punishing us with the coronavirus. That's where I kind of draw the line. I thought that was a really first of all, to think that way is stupid. Second of all, to come out and say that publicly makes you even dumber, because it's not going to do you many favors. Like, oh yeah, the coronavirus, yeah, we deserved it. It's our punishment. So just people who die, yeah. I mean, he says that now, but until he dies or someone that he knows dies, then yeah, then it becomes really serious. So shut the fuck up with that bullshit. I thought that was complete nonsense. Again, I like Hogan, but like, he makes it very difficult for me to be a fan of him when he says dumb shit like that. I thought that was so stupid. If there was ever a sad Instagram comment of the week, that would be it. What a dumb thing to say. At RJ_Marceau, final question of the day, Mr. Marceau, his question was, Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens was my match of the night for WrestleMania 36. Do you think it's being undervalued due to the success of the Boneyard and Firefly Funhouse matches? I haven't seen it mentioned much at all by fans. People said right after the match that it was very good, but it absolutely got overshadowed by those two matches. When I was putting together my list of best and worst of Mania, I honestly, I'm not going to lie to you, forgot about Owens and Rollins, because the other matches were just better. Ripley and Charlotte was better than their match, and the DQ finish initially did not help, but it turned out to be a really good match. Even before the DQ finish, it was great. It really should have been a no DQ match to begin with. And I thought what they did with the no DQ thing was fine. And it made sense, whatever. The big bump I thought was cool. Yeah, I really liked the match. I thought it was the best match of night one. The best match overall was Charlotte and Ripley, in my opinion. Owens and Rollins, people might remember more fondly because it had the outcome they wanted for the most part. I thought Ripley and Charlotte was a better match. The only other match, I thought Owens and Rollins was better than the ladder match. That's just me. I really like the ladder match, but it's not the same without a crowd. Rollins and Owens went out there and had a great match, despite there being no crowd. So I agree. It was my match of the night as a match from night one. My favorite thing from night one was the Boneyard match. My favorite thing from night two was the Firefly Funhouse match, and neither of them were really even matches, you know? But yeah, it is being undervalued. I thought it was a very good match. A great way to blow off their feet if that was indeed the end. It's been going on since November. That's a long time. 4.5, 5 months is a long time for a feud. And yeah, it kind of got a little tiresome there in the middle with all the multi-man matches. But it turned out really, really well. They have great chemistry. They had a feud about 4 years ago over the Universal Championship. RJ and I were there. We saw Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins Hell in a Cell match at Hell in a Cell 2016, which was the only good thing in that entire show because that entire show sucked. That show sucked. But that match was awesome, though. So we know they have good chemistry. That really wasn't surprising to me. But the no crowd thing would have hurt it, and it did hinder it. It probably would have been even better inside of an actual arena with an audience and 80,000 people, whatever. But they made the most of a bad situation and had a really, in my opinion, very good match. So I'm glad their feud paid off, and they had one of the best matches of the entire event. Maybe not the best match, but again, I thought it was definitely in the top 3 or 4. I think there's no doubt about that, in my opinion. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 332 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out the show. We will be back next week, as always, with a new episode of the show on Wednesday. Until then, though, you can continue to send in questions by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And also, last but certainly not least, down in the comment section on this very video, include your question, and I'll include it in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, have a great rest every week. Like I said earlier, 2 quick plugs. Thursday, WrestleRant Radio with Mr. Marceau, breaking down all the highs, lows, and everything else in between from WrestleMania 36 weekend, and probably some thoughts on NXT and Dynamite as well. And on Friday, I am talking to WWE Hall of Famer, All Elite Wrestling's own Jim Ross, good old JR. So if you have any questions for JR, be sure to let me know on the socials. I'll hopefully include them in the interview question list. We're talking for quite a while on Friday, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Check out our first interview. We haven't already heard it from WrestleRant Radio 4 years ago. It's also available here on the channel in the interviews playlist. So with all that being said, guys, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Take care, wash your hands, and I'll catch your ass down the road.